something we've been saying, John, since right back when the boom was diagnosed by the media, if you like, and that is that more businesses go under in a boom time than in a tough time. And so our clients, most of our clients, we have a 12-month program, but I would say 80% of our clients have been with us for a lot longer than that. I'm talking 2, 3, 4 years. And so they've been prepared for this in a large degree for this change to come.
Welcome to the Master Dealmakers Secrets podcast. And now, here's sales growth strategist, John Blake.
And I have done a lot of work with tradies over the years. I've got some current tradie clients. I've had ones that have been with me for a long time. So I'm sure today's conversation will be a good one. Welcome, guys, to Master Dealmaker Secrets.
Thanks for having us, John.
Great to have you on. And we were just talking before I hit record that you guys are normally the ones that are actually doing the interviewing.
Yes, we're feeling a bit uncomfortable.
Rather than the ones that are being interviewed. So this will be obviously a different experience for you. But perhaps to start off with, if you could just give us a bit of background about how you came upon this work in terms of helping tradies to improve their business, to improve the profitability of their business, to, I would imagine, create a better work-life type balance. I'm sure you can fill in some of those blanks. How did it all start?
So Warwick and I are going to do this weird thing now where we look at one another and try and figure out who's going to speak first. This is what we do on our own podcast. All right, I'll start for a change. Look, I'm Nicole, obviously. Warwick calls me Coxie. Most of our clan call me Coxie. Mm-hmm. I am a builder's wife. I'm a carpenter's mum. I'm a plasterer's daughter and sister. I have grown up in and around the trades. Fortunately or unfortunately, you take your pick. But my builder husband, through the stress of running our company, we had a really big construction company. He ended up having several breakdowns. Whoa. And I had to jump in and figure out how on earth to run a building business, even though I didn't know the difference between concrete and bricks and timber and stuff. And I guess that really highlighted for me just how stressful running a trade business can be. Through that process, we were really lucky to be able to get back to where we are now. He's doing really well. He's healthy again. But it was the kickstart, I guess, and then I had a pre-existing relationship with Woz that meant that we were able to come together and create, I guess, this early net is the way Warwick used to explain it really, really well. This early net, our tradiepreneur community is really about teaching business owners how not to get bogged down in that stress, how to do business in a way that doesn't create that outcome that I have experienced and instead creates that balance that you were talking about, that lifestyle that many of them are looking for, because we tend to, go head first into running a trade business without any idea what we're doing. We know how to be really good on the tools, but we don't know the first thing about business. And we end up in this, awkward spot where we don't have the freedom we thought we were going to have. We don't have the downtime to spend with family. We're worried about money. We're having terse conversations about money over the dinner table, or we're waking up at 3 a.m. trying to figure out how to pay the next lot of bills. It doesn't need to be that way. And, I've been really fortunate to be joined by Warwick on this, I guess, quest to try and prevent that horrible outcome like I've experienced before, because he's experienced similarities within his own story and his own family.
Yeah, I love that. The businesses that you create to fix the thing that you dislike.
Yeah.
They're always the best
Absolutely.
businesses. Yeah. So many things there in terms of the breakdowns and the stress and the balance and, great on the tools. I mean, I'm very myopic in what I do. I really just work with the top line revenue side of it. Mm-hmm. But even that, like people, they think that if they, I guess they get sick of listening to someone else telling them what to do and think I can do this better myself.
That's right.
And then suddenly they're faced with this idea that actually I have to run a business. It's like I don't just have to make things. I actually have to run a business, and it's it's quite interesting, where there's all sorts of things that can go wrong. Not the least of which is the accounting side of it. I've when you've got the wife that suddenly finds themselves as the bookkeeper
Mhm. Yep.
with absolutely no background in bookkeeping whatsoever,
Mm, mm,
and then suddenly they've got nasty letters from the tax department, and none of it has to really be like that.
mm.
No,
They're usually fairly simple things to fix if you get to them
mm,
early enough, right?
that's
And
right.
I think you
Right.
said the early safety net. Is that what you said?
Yeah, Warwick had a great acronym. I won't even say it, but he's very good at. You're going to find out really, really
Good,
quickly.
good is a stretch, Coxie, but thank you. Good at
Yeah.
coming up with acronyms and cliched sayings. It's the
But well,
business coach in me.
Yeah.
well, you do it very, very well. I'm sure that all the listeners will get very fond of it today, or something. But no, it's catching them before they fall into that heap.
Yep.
Um, all the signs were on the wall for my builder husband before he had the breakdowns, but
Yeah.
I couldn't see it. I was too busy doing my own thing. I had my own business. I was concentrating on it. I couldn't really see what was going wrong. They just presented to me as issues or problems.
Mm.
There was the stress and the flashpoints and the arguments and the not enough money and the all of that stuff that I'm sure that you've heard before, John. They were all warning signs to what wasn't working and what could have been fixed really early on, but was left far too late. Now, we were really fortunate in he was able to get through that time. We were able to create a different outcome for us. Um, but not everybody is.
No.
And we can prevent that long before it ever begins to be that real stress point in their lives.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's sad how many people that come to you where the rot has just set in so hard that that there's really not that much you can do. I mean,
Mm,
I've I've got clients that actually work with trades and I've got a bookkeeping accounting client that works with trades and construction type businesses. I've worked with a turnaround consulting company, and they talk about the early signs of needing to get something done. Not being able to meet payroll. Getting a nasty letter from the tax department. All
Mm.
these things that tradies tend to sort of just bury their head in the sand and think, well, if I work harder and I get more work, I'll be fine.
That's
And
right.
it's unfortunately it's not like that.
no.
It's not the solution anyway. I mean, it's one way to try and solve those problems, John.
Mm.
And my family are all blue collar. I wanted to do the same. And so I've had that same approach bred into me that if you have a problem, you fix it with hard work.
Yep.
And it's a bit of, I think it's very much the my generation and prior Australian male way is you fix everything by working harder, pushing
Yep.
harder,
Yep.
putting more
Put your
in.
back into it.
Yeah, that's right. Just pull your socks up and get into it.
Yep.
But that doesn't actually work.
No.
And unfortunately, most of us find that out the hard way, and we see way too many, certainly trade businesses. And Nick and I have both worked outside of the trades with consulting and various employed roles ourselves over the years. But we see way too many trade business owners that's their go-to solution is just
Mm.
to put in more and work harder.
Yep.
And often all that does is actually just bog the car even deeper.
Yep.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You're spinning the wheels, and you're getting a deeper bog.
That's
mm.
right.
So how did you get yourself into this business, Warwick? What was going on for you that led you in to being able to help tradies in these situations?
Just
Be
luck,
careful, Warwick.
just lucky, I think, John. Well, as I said, my family were all blue collar. My old man was a bit of a jack of all trades. He was knocking around sort of in the 50s and 60s before I arrived, doing all sorts of stuff. Fell into carpentry essentially, and he was doing building maintenance and pardon me, extensions and renovations and stuff into the 70s. And then, of course, well, I was the eldest son, so I grew up hanging around with dad, following him around like a bad smell, and just picked up that whole thing of working with my hands and being physically capable. So going through school, which I hated, I wanted to go on the tools with the old man, like most young people. I won't even say young blokes. You sort of want to follow in the parents' footsteps or do the complete opposite. And I liked the idea of being outside. But lucky or unlucky for me, I'm not sure. I was actually really good at my schoolwork, mainly because it was a great way to escape the bullying at high school. And so mum and dad had different ideas for me because their experience as tradies, mum was a stay-at-home mum after my brother and I were born. Dad just worked his tail off in fairly low-paying jobs. He was self-employed for a whole bunch of years and did reasonably well, but it was just a wage, and he worked really hard for his wage. And so
Yeah.
their idea was there's no way that our kids are going to take that pathway. And they thought the solution was to go get tertiary education, go and get a white collar job sitting in an office somewhere in a tower in Brisbane, because I grew up in southeast Queensland. And I lasted 15 months at that and decided that it was rubbish. And so went and worked for a building materials manufacturing company. And then I ended up on the road as a sales rep, as a building rep in my
Oh
20s.
wow.
So I did that for about 5 years in and around the building industry. Fell back into finance, did some financial planning, and built a business up with a couple of business partners. And then I just tripped over business coaching as a client and had a guy come and work with myself and my business partners in our financial planning firm. I was like, wow, this is actually getting to the source of the problem. There's financial advisors out there trying to help people pay off their houses quicker and invest money for the retirement and, get insurances in place. And I did that for about 7 years. And it was like, no one's got any cash to invest or pay off their house. They all keep telling me, but we can't just increase our wage was. We're self-employed. And where
Yeah.
I was, many of those small business owners were families or mum and dad businesses, and they were tradies. And so I tripped over this whole business coaching caper and thought, aha, this gets to the source of the money. If we can fix the business, we can actually create wealth. And that was my big passion and purpose, was helping people break that cycle. And it's something that Coxie and I talk about, is
So that
breaking
was
the
that
cycle
was
of,
when the clouds parted and the beam of light came down
mate,
and
there
the
were
angels
angels
started
singing,
singing
someone was
and you were
strumming
like,
a
this is.
harp.
I say that because I had a similar moment.
It was
I
that
just,
blinding flash,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
this is my future.
yeah, yeah.
And here I am some 15 odd years later, still trying to save people from from proverbially drowning in business. But trades is where it's at. It's honestly, it's what I do for kicks on the weekends, and I get to talk to what I think are salt of the earth people. I mean, I've had my own professional services businesses. I've coached them. I've got plenty of them as friends as well, and I look at the hardworking blue collar small businesses, and they are literally just busting their guts trying to get somewhere, and they don't have the benefit of, I got an education. I spent 10, 15 years in finance and finance businesses, and you just kind of pick up that knowledge along the way. Any of us who
Mm,
have had exposure to those industries, you learn a bunch of stuff. You learn a bit of basics about how the economy works and how pricing works and how marketing works. And unfortunately, I think trade business owners, they aren't exposed to a lot of that, and so they
no,
think that the solution is get an ABN, work really hard, do a great job for people, and somehow you'll magically retire wealthy.
yeah, yeah. It's not like that. It really isn't. And look, there's so many things that you've touched on there that I think are. I mean, I guess you've had that 360 degrees of exposed to it from your dad, looked at the financial side of things, seen the shortcomings of 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 a lot of trades type businesses from that perspective,
Mm.
and then realized through coaching that actually that's the place where you can really roll up your sleeves and get to the core of what's going on. So, so I guess that really, I think, does a great job of covering where it is that you guys have come from. And if we fast forward to what's going on right now, we are entering a period of economic uncertainty. Like there's some pretty questionable things that are happening with the economy, which I don't want to go into too many of them in too much detail, but not the least of which is interest rates are going up, access to capital, upward pressure on wages and costs. I know a lot of trades type businesses that have had unprecedented increases in the cost of their raw materials. They've had fixed contracts with clients that they've had to go back to and give them the particularly unpopular news that their price is going to go up by 20 to 30%. We've had a stack of builders that have gone bankrupt over here. There was one particular builder, which I will not mention, that went back. So they'd put they'd sold a whole bunch of house and land packages, and these buildings were just taking forever. And then because of all of the different building companies that had gone under, the banks had said to them, we will no longer guarantee your finance around building all these places. And some of them were running 2 and 3 years behind. And so what this company did is they went back to all the people that had bought house and land packages, and they bought the contracts back. And they were able to do that because the price on the value of the land had gone up. So they were able to buy, they were effectively buying the contract back from the actual customer themselves, but then they were able to make a margin on the land, and the customer was then able to go and find a different builder. But it was like significant. I think it was like 40% of their book of business that they were running behind on, and they just went back and bought back all these contracts. And their sales teams were told, hey, you can't sell anything else until we catch up. And so they basically laid off dozens of people in their sales department because there was nothing for them to sell anymore, So there's, that's unprecedented. That sort of thing, I don't think that sort of thing's ever happened, but it's all a function of what's happening in the economy around, like I said, upward pressure on interest rates, upward pressure on wages and costs and materials, and downward pressure on at the same time on profits. So what are you noticing with your clients? I guess there's two questions. What are you noticing at the moment? And I guess we've just covered off on some of it. But what is it that you're helping your clients to put in place, your tradie clients to put in place, so that they are least and last affected by some of this turbulence and uncertainty that we're moving into?
Okay, we're doing
this is
that
where we look at each other. Just give us a moment while we do rock, paper,
as long as you don't start finishing each other's sentences, then I'll start thinking.
Oh, no, we do that too, mate. This is why we have to live 2,000 miles apart.
Yeah.
It's so we can work together well. Jump in, Coxie.
All right, there's something we've been saying, John, since right back when the boom was diagnosed by the media, if you like, and that is that more businesses go under in a boom time than in a tough time. And so our clients, most of our clients, we have a 12-month program, but I would say 80% of our clients have been with us for a lot longer than that. I'm talking 2, 3, 4 years. And so they've been prepared for this in a large degree for this change to come.
A lot of people who listen to the podcast want to know what we do over at Master Dealmaker Secrets. And effectively what we do is we work with sales professionals and business owners all over the world who are seeing massive increases in their top line sales revenue. So we help business owners and sales professionals to effectively focus on the 3 key drivers to growing sales revenue in your business. The first one is controlling the message that you send out into the marketplace so that potential clients see and hear and read what you do as an opportunity as opposed to your competitors. The second thing that we do is we help you to create a direct path to the 20% of your ideal clients that will deliver 80% of the revenue. So everyone knows the 80-20 rule. We help you to develop a direct path to the 20% of the people that are going to give you 80% of your sales revenue in your business. And the third thing that we allow you to do, that we create a process for, is for you to be able to double the amount of leads that you get that convert into paying clients. So if this is of interest, we do have an application-only process to become involved in this particular program. And to get to there, all you need to do is to go to www.johnblakescall.com. So it's JOHNBLAKESCALL.com, and there's a couple of questions to answer there, and then what you'll do is get on a quick conversation with me, and I can find out a little bit more about what you've got going on in your business and see potentially whether what you are doing would be a fit for what we could help you with. And at that point, I can extend an invitation if it's a fit, and you can make the choice to come on board or not. So that's the opportunity. That would be the next step if you're looking at how you can take things to the next level. If you're enjoying what you're hearing on the podcast, if you're getting value from it, I invite you to do that, and I will look forward to talking to you. The website is www.johnblakescall.com. Talk to you soon.
That's because we've had the benefit of being around the block a few times. And so we can see some of those key indicators that generally suggest what might be coming. And so we've been talking to them since last year when they were all experiencing a great flurry of work and they were doing really well financially. We were talking then with them about doing some of the basics, like getting really clear on what their figures look like, because you take your eye off the ball when you feel like there's money coming in all the time. And if you're not really clear on what your profit margins are doing, and you're not really clear on how your productivity is tracking or what your marketing is doing, very quickly all of that can dry up, and we don't have the profit margin we thought that we had. So we've been doing a lot of work around their financials, and secondary to that would be their marketing. We've been working really solidly on their marketing for a good 8 months now. And so most of them at this point are not feeling any difference at all. Very rarely. We're doing some tweaks because, of course, there are some that are starting to feel some squeeze. But again, if we look back historically, they turn the tap off and they stop marketing, or they stop really concentrating on what their leads were doing through marketing. So they couldn't see that some of those trends were shifting 6 months ago. Of course, they're feeling that impact now. So it's just for them, it's been very clear about what to monitor, how closely to monitor it, and what to change where something's not quite working.
And in doing so, do you help them get clear on who their best buyer is?
100%.
Yep.
It's one of the very first exercises we do.
Yeah. Who is my best buyer?
There is a bit of a shift to that, John, though, we've noticed, or we've been talking about, and that is we're all trying to get the very best client for us to work with. However, at times like this where there is some uncertainty or there's fear, and we talk a lot about the media creates the outcome that we all then live, because the media is telling us that we all need to be fearful. The media is demonstrating only the negativity. It's not showing any of the positivity that's there. And we've got many clients that could show you that they're not feeling any of the things that the media is telling us we must feel. So they're not behaving with that hesitation yet. And so what we're talking to them about is, yeah, absolutely, we all have an ideal client that we'd like to work with. But sometimes because of what is going on external to us, we need to be focusing on the kind of client that's currently contacting us. So we have a right now avatar it is serving us well right now to solve the problems that we need to solve right now. And we have our longer term and can be shorter term at the same time ideal avatar that would like to continue to work with, because that's the jobs that we like to do. They continue to bring the better profit. But it's really important, we feel, to be clear on that understanding that most businesses have several avatars that they actually work with. And sometimes the right now one is the one we really need to be focusing on.
Yeah. And are the people that you work with mostly business to consumer or business to business?
Oh, it's a bit of a mix. I couldn't actually put a finger on a majority. It's probably a relatively even split, but then even within some of those clients, they're working with some B2B and also some B2C. And part of what we encourage them to do is look at opportunities to diversify, because if you're heavily into the residential market and it takes a hit, well, all of a sudden your business is awfully exposed. Whereas the investment property market might be a little more buoyant and have some more cash flow within it. So if you've got that aspect to your business, then you're not going to be as dramatically affected as markets move. And as you mentioned on this thread, John, we're seeing uncertain times, and we're seeing volatile markets because I studied a bit of economics and was in financial planning for years, so it's hard to stay away from jargon. But you look at that market volatility; it's largely driven by emotion. Matter of fact,
Mm.
I think all of it is. My cynic view is that all markets are driven purely by emotion. There's no
Yeah.
fundamentals. You see these companies that have had all this capital value stripped from them on the stock exchange. It's got nothing to do with business fundamentals and everything to do with people's attitudes. So I think this is where trade business owners, unfortunately, and this is the stuff that my dad never understood. I'm old enough to remember the '87 stock market crash here in Australia,
Mm.
and that was the end of the world for Australians.
Yeah.
What people didn't realise is that was just one of many that was to come, and here we are in 2023. And how many have we had since then? Corrections and GFCs and meltdowns and all sorts of stuff, tech wrecks, and they just keep coming. But my old man just never fully understood that, and they lost a lot of money for them. In relative terms, they lost a lot of money that they had invested in 1987, as did I. I'd saved a heck of a lot of money as a teenager, mowing lawns and keeping my ledger, and I'd bought managed funds, is essentially what they were called back then,
Mm.
and I lost like $3,000 in 1987 dollars that I'd saved up over a bunch of years of busting my gut,
Yeah.
right? And it all went up in smoke
Yeah.
because my parents said, well, holy crap, we need to get out of this. And I sold it down under their guidance, I think for like $400 or $500. And of course, we know they crystallize the losses and all that sort of stuff. But that's the fear based behavior that
Mm.
unfortunately drives the marketing for a lot of small businesses. It drives their sales behaviors.
Certainly
Um,
does.
and so they all start to look inwards, and they go into this contractionary state where it's like, oh, I've got to protect my patch and take care of what I've got. And they become ultra conservative in their decision making about, what clients to take on. And unfortunately, they're not solving right now problems with right now solutions.
Yeah. Yeah. They end up taking on clients out of desperation.
Mm-hmm.
They end up sacrificing margin because they think that that's going to win them more work.
That's right. They end up
Um,
buying business, which ends up costing them money to deliver because of things like the materials price
yeah.
pressure that you talked about and wage rates and all those sorts of things. Which, look, I don't want to downplay how difficult some of that stuff is to deal with, and particularly the short time frames that some of these things have come about. Certainly in my business history, I've not seen such dramatic changes happen quite so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
The reasons why, who knows? I mean, we had governments meddling with the economy and pumping artificial money into construction and everything to create excess supply, and now here we are with apparently raging inflation and all sorts of other problems. But it's a pretty complex issue here in Australia as it is around the world.
It's it's
But
it's quite bizarre to me that we're in this situation because obviously we overspent at a time when when the media was telling us to be really scared,
yeah,
Mm.
right?
yeah.
And the only lever that they've got, it's just this one trick pony. It's like, let's just keep putting interest rates up.
That's
It's
right.
like
Mhm.
that's all they've got. It's like, is that it?
They have two tools: spend money or
Is
hit people
that
with
it?
an interest rate stick.
Is
That's
that
it.
all you got?
It's like an 1850s approach to managing a 2023 economy.
Yeah. You would
But
think that we'd be a little bit more advanced. You know what I mean?
come on, this is government we're talking about, John.
Yeah, let's blame it on the Reserve Bank chairman. It's quite bizarre. I mean, just a couple of things that you said there reminded me. You said 97 and 2008. I can't remember which one he triggered, but when Alan Greenspan, the treasurer in the States, talked about irrational exuberance.
Yes.
He
Yes.
was the most deadpan guy
You're getting
ever.
too excited.
Yeah. Irrational exuberance. And the stock market went.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's not based on business fundamentals, and I think that times like these, mate. To go back to what you were saying, and to pick up on what Coxie was speaking to before, this is a sweeping generalization, which is always fraught with danger, and attracts potential hate mail. Not that I've ever received any. I'm obviously not trying hard enough, but
It's never too late.
Yeah, you're throwing down the gauntlet now.
tradies. I'll give out Coxie's address. Tradies don't have the fundamentals in place strongly enough in their businesses to adapt to these conditions. I'm sure your business has experienced some sort of impact from these economic conditions, John. And if it hasn't, it's because you've actually had the strategies in place to move, adapt, evolve, whatever you needed to do in order to stay in step with the waves. But the problem is, and Nicole and I have had to do the same. Our business is
Mm.
constantly adapting. We're constantly speaking about what's coming, what's the next trend, what's the next, trend with business coaching, with business programs, what's happening with the trades. We're constantly looking at what's going on, and unfortunately, that worker mentality keeps people a bit blinkered and a bit head in the sand from what's going on around them. So, like, all of a sudden, materials prices went up, and people are caught by complete surprise. But for those people who were keeping an eye on things, like, well, it probably wasn't that big of it shouldn't have been that big a surprise.
No.
And there were things that people could have done to soften the blow a little bit. It's still hard.
Mm.
It's still a challenging situation to navigate with clients and all that sort of stuff. But I think it is that irrational exuberance, to
Yeah.
go back to that. It's that unbridled optimism that things will always be this good.
Mm.
The trades have had an absolute purple patch through
Yeah.
COVID because of the artificial demand that was created.
Mm.
And unfortunately, most of them didn't give any thought to the fact that maybe one day this will come to an end. Then what?
Yeah. I see it all the time. Like and industries go through cycles. So they go through a point, and I'm sure you've seen the market for any product, where you've got 3 to 7% are either buying now or in the market. Then underneath that, you've got 30% that are open to it. Underneath that, you've got 30% that aren't thinking about it, and 30% that think they don't need it. And in a booming market, you've got more buyers. So you've got more people who are buying now. You don't have to sell.
That's right.
It's like people just, people are lining up. You don't have to sell. You just need to take people's money, right?
That's right.
And then what happens is that when things settle down, these guys forget how to sell. So I've been doing this nearly 20 years, and I've been through stages where I'll get someone who'll ring me and they'll go, I've just realized that I've got an entire team of salespeople that have never experienced an actual downturn. And they've never really been taught to sell, or what they used to do to get clients across the board, across the line, they don't do anymore because they didn't have to. They were able to stop doing that, and now we've got to retrain them because they've dropped. Things have tightened up, and people aren't buying as readily. So we need to retrain them, and this is the same for tradies. It's like, things have been so good. Oh, and the other thing is, the other classic indicator of this is real estate agents, right? So when the real estate market's booming, every man and his dog wants to be a real estate agent, and then once things tighten up, they reckon it's about 30% leave the profession, go back to selling cars.
Except they can't get stock at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're in trouble too.
So we've talked about making sure that you've got a good profit. We've talked about being clear on who your avatar is, and the best part about that is that if you are clear about who you want, then you're also clear about who you don't want. So you can actually disqualify them at the front end and save yourself a lot of time and drama. So we've talked about profitability. We've talked about marketing, who your avatar is now, who you want your avatar to be. What are some of the other things that you're doing with your clients to help them to be as robust as possible in the coming years?
Nothing really. They're just figuring it out as they go.
We just take their money and make them feel good. We do some high fives and a bit of hugging and stuff.
Cuddles, lots of cuddles,
Yeah, yeah.
occasionally a big stick.
I want to jump in
Just take it as it
'cause
comes.
Yeah.
yeah, she'll be right, mate.
Yeah.
I mean, we obviously you talk a lot about sales, John, and you've touched on that whole people forgetting how to sell
Mm.
in whatever definition that holds for them. Something that and it's a bit of a hobby horse for Coxie, and I don't say that negatively. It's a big part of what we re-educate our tradies about, and that is sales as a process, because it takes a huge chunk of this idea that a lot of people have about sales, that it's some black art or born with talent or something, gift of the gab, and in most cases it's actually not. Yes, we're dealing with humans and psychological buyer behaviors and personas and all that sort of stuff definitely comes into it, but I don't feel like that's the majority of it for the majority of businesses. When you're talking about trade businesses and someone's got a blocked dunny and they need someone to come and fix it, or they've been umming and ahhing about putting the deck on the house for the last 9 months, and they're finally down to talking to a few trade businesses. 80% of those customers can be won, quote unquote, through a cracking sales process, where, as you talked about, there's the pre-qualification, there's the value building, the know, like, and trust can all be embedded within that process. It doesn't require a heck of a lot of thought after the fact. Once that process is installed, it honestly just becomes follow the bouncing ball. If you do the
Mm.
things and you say the thing and you show up the same way every time, then we've seen conversion rates for our clients go from 15, 20% from inquiry to job to 70, 80, 90, even 100% in some cases,
Yeah.
with better quality clients and more profitable jobs because of all the positioning that happens that's just baked into that whole process.
Yeah.
So it's a fair bit of work, and we have some people who, they fall off their chair when they understand what's involved in putting that in place, even in a small business. But that, I think, is one of the anchors for many of our clients. Is they have a huge opportunity right now to be the professional trade business, to create a great customer experience, to prove value and trust and all the other things that I think will become more important at a time like this in the mind of those consumers who are still going to spend money. I mean, let's face it, there's always people out there with money, and they will always find ways to spend it. It's just that perhaps the decision making gets a little tighter around who am I going to spend it with and
Mm.
when.
Mm.
So I think that's a huge part of what we do with our community. And maybe Coxie's got an opinion as well.
Yeah, I do. The other thing we've started working heavily on is employee certainty, because not only do we as business owners and consumers feel the fear, our employees are really seeing what's tracking or what's we're being told is happening via social media, via their family and their friends. And so they're starting to get a little bit fearful about their position within the companies as well and what might eventuate or happen, because they are seeing things like builders fall over, or some of the sub trades are, unfortunately, because they're missing out where the builders are, they're also falling over. So they feel a lot of fear around these times within their position within the company, and will the company stand up and keep going? So we're working quite heavily on those people systems, the people management systems, to ensure that we've got good, sturdy, robust teams that are able to help and work with us through these times that are coming. And that might mean that there are opportunity, because the labour market is starting to shift. That's one change that we're seeing quite a bit of now. The labour market is changing.
For the
We're
better or for the
finding that
worse?
for the better,
Yeah,
for the better,
yeah.
finally.
Fortunately.
The rates are starting to come down. They're not getting away with what they've been asking for the last couple of years. That is
Yep.
changing. And then we're also seeing not quite a saturation on the market, but there is more labor on the market.
Yep.
There's more availability.
Yep.
And that's going to keep happening. That's a good thing for employers. So, if we've got that structure right, if we've got the systems in place to carry us through with that, again, this becomes another opportunity for us as business owners that many others won't be positioned to take advantage of it at a time like this.
Yeah.
And many of us have got great team. We worked really hard during the last couple of years to ensure that we have fantastic, productive team. Now is when we want to hang on to them. So we want to keep them feeling comfortable in their positions while still encouraging them to grow, of course, and strive, but comfortable that our company is going to keep moving forward. Sure, we might not have all the jobs that we'd like to have right now, but how about we work together to figure out a way that we can all contribute to
Yeah.
finding more work? That kind of transparency and honesty is really important for them at a time like this.
Yeah, I love that term, employee certainty.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. And as you were talking about the sales stuff, I've got a trades client at the moment, and they wanted to implement a booking fee,
hmm
and they were all really scared about it, especially the girls that were taking the calls, because that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that initial conversation is critical to
Yeah.
how it goes with that client.
Yep.
And they were all really scared of implementing this booking fee. And so I trained a team. I spent a lot of time with the girls that answer the phone, and we implemented it. And they have gone from that. They've gone from I think it was about a 50%, 60% conversion rate to a 90% conversion rate. And there's only about 30% of the people that they're talking to that push back on the booking fee.
Mm.
So that if you do the maths, it's like, that's incredible. That is just, they are on fire. Like the difference
Yeah.
that's made to their turnover. And it was
Yeah.
just through giving the girls the confidence, because without that, it just wouldn't have worked. With giving the girls the confidence to be able and obviously, we created the dialogue, exactly how to say it, coach them on how to say it, what to say, all the rest of it. And that, I was just talking to him this morning, and he's just, now his next problem is, I need more people.
Yeah.
So it's like,
It's a much better
okay,
problem
so
to
we've got
have.
more sales, now we need to increase capacity. So
That's
Yeah.
right. And all of that for essentially zero additional spend on
Mhm.
advertising and
Yeah.
marketing.
Yep.
And a much higher profitability, because there's all of that reduction in wasted time
Yeah.
talking to people who aren't converting.
Yeah, they don't have
It's a more
to
profitable
talk to
business.
someone who's going to go and get 9 quotes. They don't have to chase somebody who was never going to buy from them anyway.
Yep.
And the offer we put together on the booking fee was amazing. The majority of people are saying, "Yep, that's fine,"
Mm.
and they're the ones that are now committed to actually do something, and that's why 9 out of 10 of them are now buying. So it's brilliant.
That's right.
And
That's right.
there's these little, and I'm sure you see them all the time. There's just little small hinges that swing big doors.
Yeah. Yep. And people look at the little hinge though and go, "I can't possibly make that big a difference."
Yeah.
It's
But
like,
it really
believe
does.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've swung a lot of doors, and it does.
Yeah.
Professional door tester.
Yeah. Most of them have been shut in my face over the years, but that, I
Yeah.
still take the learnings.
Yeah. Well, look, it's been great having you guys on. How should people find you if they're looking for tradies in business?
Thanks, Nick. As Nick steps back from the microphone for me, mate, easiest way is via our website. So
Okay.
all the W's, tradiesinbusiness.com.au.
Yep.
And we have some free trainings on there that you can find our podcast on there.
Yep.
We have events and stuff occasionally, mostly online these days, because we service the whole country, even the West.
Got it.
Even the West.
Yep.
But head to the website and you can learn more about us and some of our clients as well. We've got some cracking client stories on the website, which is what gives me the real buzz.
Yep.
It's that starry-eyed. Actually, I was a burned out financial planner, let's be honest. And to see business coaching back 15 odd years ago and see the potential that it had to change people's outcomes and change their lifestyles, to see the stories coming from our clients now, literally, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but literally brings a tear to my eye. I read some of those stories. It's just, makes my day.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's what lights me up.
100%. Making a difference.
Definitely. Awesome.
Well, thanks, John.
Thanks again, guys, for coming on. I'll put a link to your website in the show notes. But thanks again for coming on, and we'll look forward to chatting to you guys again soon.
Pleasure,
Thanks,
mate.
John.
You've been listening to Master Dealmaker Secrets with John Blake. Subscribe to get more in-depth strategies and maximize your sales process with new episodes every other week. And double your inquiry to sale conversion with the lead flow you already have. Go to johnblakeaudio.com for his exclusive, free, no fluff audio training and companion PDF guide.